began with a voice, not a scream, not a cry, just a whisper floating through the fog, soft, cold, barely human. Come closer. And every person who followed that voice never returned. The town of Raven's Hollow sat beside an ancient graveyard. People avoided it after sunset. Children were warned never to go near it. Even adults crossed the road to avoid looking at it. Because every few years, something woke up there, something hungry, and lately, the whispers had returned. Ethan Carter arrived in Raven's Hollow during heavy rain. He worked as a documentary filmmaker. His channel focused on haunted places, ghost sightings, paranormal mysteries, abandoned locations, and the Raven's Hollow graveyard had become famous online after multiple disappearances. Perfect content. At least that's what he thought. The motel owner looked nervous when Ethan mentioned the graveyard. "You should leave before night." Ethan smiled. "It's just stories." The old man slowly shook his head. "No." His hands trembled badly. "Stories don't drag people underground." That night, at exactly 12:47 a.m., Ethan heard whispering outside his motel room. Very faint, almost impossible to hear. "Help me." Ethan slowly opened the curtain. Outside, a woman stood across the road, wearing an old white dress, her face hidden by long black hair, completely motionless. Rain poured around her, but strangely, she wasn't wet. Ethan grabbed his camera instantly. The woman slowly lifted one hand and pointed toward the graveyard. Then suddenly, the motel lights shut off. Darkness swallowed everything. A second later, the lights returned. The woman was gone. But muddy footprints now covered Ethan's floor, leading inside his room. The next morning, Ethan visited the graveyard. Huge iron gates stood half open. Rust covered every grave. Dead trees twisted across the cemetery like giant claws, and deep in the center, one grave looked newer than the others. No name, no date. Only one sentence carved into the stone: "She must not wake." Ethan filmed everything carefully. Then his camera microphone captured something strange, whispering, very low, very close. "Behind you." Ethan turned instantly. Nobody there, but one grave behind him had opened slightly. Fresh dirt surrounded it, as if something had crawled out recently. That evening, Ethan interviewed an elderly priest named Father Michael. The old man looked terrified after hearing about the grave. "You should destroy the footage." Ethan frowned. "Why?" Father Michael whispered carefully. "Because once she hears your voice, she follows you." The room became silent. Then the priest revealed the truth. Over 70 years ago, a young woman named Elizabeth Moore was buried alive in the graveyard. People accused her of witchcraft after children began disappearing. Villagers beat her, dragged her into the cemetery, and buried her screaming beneath the ground. But 3 days later, the villagers started dying, one by one. Bodies torn apart, eyes missing, and every victim heard whispering before death. Father Michael looked directly into Ethan's eyes. She never forgave them. That night, Ethan reviewed his footage alone. Everything seemed normal, until he paused one frame, near the graves. A pale face stared directly into the camera. Black eyes, wide smile, skin covered in dirt and blood. Ethan's breathing stopped. Then suddenly, the woman inside the footage moved, even though the video was paused. Slowly. She smiled wider. Then the screen filled with static, and a loud scream exploded from the speakers. Ethan jumped backward. The lights began flickering violently. Then came the whisper, directly behind him. "Why did you wake me?" Ethan turned slowly. The woman stood inside his room, white dress torn apart, mud covering her skin, her jaw unnaturally broken sideways, and dirt poured endlessly from her mouth. Ethan grabbed his camera, but suddenly the ghost vanished. Then something slammed against the bathroom door. Bang! 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 The mirror inside shattered loudly. Blood slowly leaked underneath the door. Then silence. Ethan forced the bathroom open. Inside, written across the mirror in blood, "Come to the graves." The next night, 3 teenagers entered the graveyard for fun, laughing, recording videos, trying to become famous online. Ethan secretly followed them to document everything. At first, nothing happened. Only fog, only silence. Then one teenager heard whispering near the mausoleum. "Help me." The boy laughed nervously. "Did you hear that?" Then suddenly, a hand burst from the ground. Rotting fingers grabbed his ankle. The boy screamed. More hands exploded from the dirt, dozens of dead hands pulling him downward. His friends tried helping him, but the ground swallowed him alive. His friends tried helping him, but the ground swallowed him alive. Blood sprayed across the graves. The screaming stopped instantly. Only silence remained. Then slowly, the whisper returned. More. The remaining teenagers ran. Ethan followed them through the fog. But the graveyard had changed. The pathways stretched endlessly. Graves moved positions. Statues turned their heads slowly. And everywhere, shadow figures stood between the tombstones, watching silently. Then one girl froze. A child stood ahead of her, small, pale, eyes completely black. That night, Ethan woke to whispering again, but this time, the whispers came from beneath his bed. "Come down here." His breathing became shaky. Slowly, he looked underneath. Darkness, nothing else. Then 2 glowing eyes opened inside the darkness, and a hand shot outward. Ethan ran into the street screaming. But Raven's Hollow was empty. No cars, no people, no sounds. Fog covered everything. Then church bells rang loudly in the distance. Dong, dong, dong. Ethan followed the sound toward the graveyard, and what he saw froze his blood. Every grave stood open, every single one. Bodies climbed slowly from the earth. Rotting corpses, broken bones, missing faces, and all of them walked toward the church, as if answering a call. Then, in the center of the graveyard, Elizabeth stood waiting, smiling. Father Michael arrived holding an old wooden cross. "She's gathering souls," Ethan whispered. "How do we stop her?" The priest looked terrified. "You can't stop her. She was never alone." Suddenly, the ground beneath the cemetery began shaking violently. Cracks spread across the graves, and something massive moved underground, something enormous. Then a giant skeletal hand burst from beneath the earth, followed by another and another. A creature larger than any human crawled upward from below the graveyard. Its body made from hundreds of corpses twisted together, faces screaming across its skin, bones cracking endlessly. Inside the church, Father Michael revealed the final truth. The villagers had not buried Elizabeth alone. They had sacrificed dozens of children with her, to feed the Gravekeeper beneath the cemetery. But the ritual failed. Now, every 70 years, the creature woke again, hungry for more souls. And Ethan's filming had awakened it fully. Then suddenly, the church doors exploded inward. The dead flooded inside, people screaming, teeth snapping, rotting hands grabbing everywhere. Then Elizabeth entered behind them. Blood tears streamed from her eyes. "You buried me alive." The walls began cracking violently. The Gravekeeper was coming. The ground beneath the church exploded. Gigantic skeletal fingers burst through the floor. People fell screaming into darkness below. Ethan grabbed his camera while chaos erupted everywhere. The church collapsed slowly around them, and beneath the broken floor, he saw thousands of bodies moving underground, still alive, still screaming. But the graveyard swallowed him slowly, deeper, deeper into darkness. 3 months later, police entered Raven's Hollow after reports of disappearances, but the town was empty, completely abandoned. No survivors, no bodies, nothing, only silence. One officer discovered Ethan's broken camera near the graveyard gates. The footage inside was corrupted, mostly static. But in the final seconds, one image appeared clearly. Ethan standing among the graves, smiling unnaturally wide, eyes completely black, and beside him, Elizabeth whispering softly, "We were waiting for more." Then the screen cuts to black, and faint whispering continues after the credits.